Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. Is my favorite part of the conference, is a chance to really interact with you. So I know that there are some people here who weren't here yesterday, so I'm just going to set a super quick context so that you understand what it is that we're going to be doing, because my intent is just to move deeper into the experience of what happened yesterday in my talk. And so the gist of what we're going to be following up on is that having passionate intent helps, aligning with that is what helps us discover our purpose. And that when we have clarity about our purpose and we're in our passion, there are a few ways that we have to express that in our lives. It's pretty basic. It's what we say, what we do, and how we spend our money. Those things actually reveal our values and our self-awareness. And I described one of many personal experiences that I've had in discovering where my behavior is conflicted with my passion and my purpose. And I believe wholeheartedly that it takes unconflicted behavior in order for our passion and our purpose to be realized, and toward that end for the new paradigm to be manifest. So my intention with this workshop is really to have an experience of increasing the amount of unconflicted behavior in our lives, like for real. So the reason that we're in groups of 3 is I really feel that emotion is a key part of how our understanding moves into action is through feeling. I just think we just know that. If everything that we understood we could do, it would be a completely different life experience, and it isn't. And so it's this passage through feeling that things ground us, and I believe give us the courage to make the changes that align our behavior with our passion and our purpose. So toward that end, I want to say that the quality of your listening, I don't know who's talking, but it's behind. Okay. Well then, the quality of your presence in this is going to really matter. What you get out of it will be what you put into it. And there is a chance for us actually to have a real experience of moving through this process with something that's real for you. So this groups of 3, we're going to be returning to 3 times in the course of this workshop, because this is going to be a really, this is a workshop. Like, I know some people are kind of continuing their talks. I'm not. This is a workshop. We're going to actually be engaged here and doing a process, because like I said, the new paradigm is a process to me. It's not a product, and it's not a political party. It's a process, and it's a personal process that shows up as the way that we manifest through our everyday actions and daily decisions. So I would like, if you begin, so we will have 3 main experiences that we're going to break out into: one for understanding, for feeling, and for action, in honor of the process that I believe this will come to be through. This one is going to be where you just introduce yourself, like, hi, I'm Kimberly, kind of introduce yourself, and describe a change that you made successfully in your life. Sometime when you noticed that you were doing something that didn't actually reflect the clarity that you had about your purpose and your passion. And so you changed that behavior. So I would just like you to think about a time. It can be anything on any level. Just something that you did where you made an intention to change your behavior and you pulled it off. So if you would just take just a few minutes, share your name, and describe a time that you had an experience like that and what the issue was, that would be great. All right, go for it. Okay, thank you very much. So we'll just pause for a moment here, and my intention, of course, is for you to each have an opportunity to recognize that we do know how to change, right? We know the experience. Each of us has had an experience of recognizing where we're out of sync with our purpose and our passion and making the change. And so as we go through this exercise further, I really do want to mention that this is a chance, like, this matters. You know, when I listen, and obviously I spend a lot of my time getting informed about big issues around the world, and I think that there's something about the process that can be so overwhelming. Like, it's like, where do you go with that? You know, how do you stop a false flag? And what about the money system? And it's so big, right, that it's easy to let that stay up here and just feel kind of like, well, God, you know, I'm kind of trying to be a good person, but then what? And so I think that there are people for taking on false flags, and there are people for taking on the money system, and there's something unique for each of us to do. And that's the point. There is something unique for each of us to do. And if it's not one of those huge things, it's something. And the same way that denial has a kind of cascade to it, it's like, if I learn this information, and then I'm going to have to do something about my behavior to get aligned with it, maybe I would rather not know that information, right? We certainly, everybody experiences that, and we certainly experience it when if you're trying to share some information with somebody sometimes, and they're just like, nope, I do not want to know this. It's like, well, why not? I understand that. It's consequential to know what's going on, and one of the things that can really matter and help with that process is if we're actually engaged in doing something that we know is toward this new paradigm that we're all here today because we care about creating. So it matters, and we care, and how to actually take all this stuff and remember that's why we're here, because we care. We care about each other. We care about being the kind of people that we want to be. So I think that it's important to consider what is some conflicted behavior that you have in your life right now, where you know it might, you just kind of don't think about it when you're doing it, kind of intentionally don't think about it when you're doing it, because if you do think about it, it makes you a little uncomfortable. And I don't think it needs to be like the kind of conflicted behavior that is huge, like I'm paying taxes that are supporting war, and that's conflicted behavior. There's no question about it. And the consequence of not paying taxes is also really huge. Let's just take a moment quietly, not interacting with each other, and each of you think about a behavior that you have in your life that is actually out of alignment with your passion and your purpose and what you know is going to get us into the new paradigm. And just be quiet for a moment and think about what that is. Okay. Usually it doesn't take that long to come up with something in our lives, and especially because the more we know, the more we recognize the ways that sometimes we're inadvertently participating. I described yesterday, learning that banks use my deposits to give these cheap loans to the corporations that are ruining our planet and doing their best to ruin our lives, and what it felt like and what it feels like to know that I was contributing to that, and then what it feels like to make the change. So there's this story, it's kind of this Dickens process where Scrooge, I don't know for any of you who are familiar with this, where Scrooge comes across the ghost of Christmas, who reflects to him what his life is going to be if he keeps up his current behavior. And it's so painful as he lives through this that he's able to make the change. And as I mentioned yesterday, my experience, my grandmother's experience, the experience of most people I've ever known, is that it's through feeling the pain of not changing, actually really feeling the pain of not changing, that we get the courage to make that change. So I am going to ask this time that you take some quiet time to actually drop in, and here's what I want you to think about, that conflicted behavior, imagine and really feel deeply into the possibility that you don't change it. That you go ahead and at the end of your life, as it's all coming, you realize that for any number of reasons, you didn't do that. And feel that. Just feel the painful possibility of not changing the conflicted behavior that you've identified that you have in your life. And again, the quality of your willingness to drop into this is a shared experience. Nobody is alone in having conflicted behavior or in the challenge of changing it. This is the human condition. It's why we are where we are. So feeling the pain is really useful. It's an uncomfortable experience, and that's also shared. So I just want to acknowledge that if it's uncomfortable, to feel that and allow yourself to really carry this vision of possibility forward, that's part of it. Go ahead and begin that process now. Thank you. So I'm going to ask that in this state of reflection that I'm going to ask you to turn in your circles of 3 again, and this time really, you know what it's like to really listen to somebody where you're not interrupting and sharing what your experience is, and to each take 5 minutes to actually share with the group what it feels like as you feel into the possibility of maintaining this conflicted behavior. And the quality of this feeling, if you can experience it here, it really will serve to motivate you in another time that we'll get to, but to actually allow this feeling and to recognize that failure is an option, right? Like this can happen. We can fail to manifest unconflicted behavior. So I appreciate whatever care that we have for ourselves and for each other in this process, to really keep it in that space here as we share in threes, each of you 5 minutes, what it will feel like to you to get to the end of your life realizing that you did not make the change that you had identified with this conflicted behavior. And we'll begin that now. Thank you. Thank you for this experience. I'll tell you, I'm in touch with one personally. I got a letter from a friend of mine about 2 months ago. It was the most thoughtful letter. Like she'd been listening to things I had been doing through Thrive, and so she wrote these really personal reflections about what she saw in me. She's this busy woman, she has a new baby. Anyway, it was like one of those letters you get and you really appreciate and save and respond to. And I so wanted to give this thoughtful response that I wrote, and I said, thank you so much. I'm going to take time, to respond to you with what's warranted here and called for in my heart. And my entire life, one of the issues I have dealt with is time stuff, right? I'm always engaged in really exciting, busy things, and I've got it so I work out, and I've got it so I meditate, and I've got it so I've got good time with Foster. And still, I'm just like running, right? And this letter is still on my desk 2 months later. And when New Year's came around and it was New Year's resolution, it was like, oh my God, it's still happening. This is still happening for me. Something I really value is cultivating these relations. There aren't that many, where it's just really the kind of relationship you want to make sure that you're right, staying aware of and present to. And in fact, cultivating and staying present to those relations is a real value, and I believe that it's actually a big part of the new paradigm. And so I am feeling and have been feeling the pain of this letter sitting on my desk, and I have been keeping it there on the top no matter what else comes. I keep moving it to the top, and this conference and getting ready for it, it was like, okay, so after today, I'm really going to deal with this. And we'll talk about that, but it's only because I'm really sad that I'm still doing this. I am really sad. I can't tell you. I have been doing this my entire life. The number of serious conversations I've had about this. And so I did this and just thought, what if this doesn't change? Like, what if I actually don't change this one? And I don't want that to happen. So that was part of what I thought about in inviting you to have that process here today. So if there are any few people who feel like sharing anything about what it felt like for them in this, and to offer a short experience of that, I would love it. So here you are.
Hopefully it's working. There it is. I heard, thank you for this process. I can't imagine going away and having this fade, like so many things have faded in my life, because I heard the same, just to boil it down to its essence, I heard from myself and two others. So there were three stories of what does this feel like, and the least common denominator that everyone said is if they don't do this, basically whatever it is, there's going to be feelings of loss or waste or squandering of an opportunity. So to me, this is, if we don't live true to who and what we are, that uniqueness that you talked about, we are going to experience loss, waste, and squandered opportunities, because we all do have our unique contribution. And lastly, that the natural, I think, the true emotion that I heard from everyone is imagining that scenario is sadness at its core, just sadness. And
Thank you.
And I don't think I can forget that.
Thank you.
I got one over here. And let's have him, and then you can go.
Should have had tissues. How about one? Okay. I want to have time.
Thank you. I noticed that my failure was also tied to the experience I had of success. About 18 months ago, I received a cancer diagnosis, and the biopsy was in, and so I didn't know the prognosis of it. But what I arrived at in the situation where I made a change was coming to that my life had been a failure. The things that I wanted to accomplish most, I had not. And the sadness was profound. Uncontrollable tears. My body wouldn't let me stop sobbing. And very interesting. Now I've undergone treatment, and here, I'll take that. I've undergone treatment, and about 80% of the original cancer left. But I've got 20% metastases. Lo and behold, I'm living inconsistent with the new lifestyle I created for myself, about 20%. It's like, oh, okay, my digital addiction, my video game thing, is exactly in the way of me doing what I really want to do. And it seems trivial, almost funny on the surface level. But at the core, there's that same profound sadness that, wow, I'm still not letting myself win at this. I'm still not going to let myself leave this life having accomplished what I set out to accomplish. And it's weird because I've got intellectual answers for it, but they don't make a darn bit of difference.
Yeah.
And the main emotion is sadness and frustration.
Thank you so much. So, as I have mentioned throughout my talk, and it's obviously represented here, I believe that we need to feel it to heal it. And that this feeling is the gateway to the healing. And that accessing it actually ends up providing us with just what we need to make the change in our behavior. Because when you experience this and you know that the end of your life is going to come, right? It is going to come. And so how is it going to feel? And that it's actually up to you right now to make that choice. And so I would like to have it be that in the next exercise, we are in our groups, and this time we make a declaration to change this conflicted behavior. And I would like whoever's speaking and making that declaration to stand as you do that with the group and say as clearly as you can what it is that you're going to do, including what support you need. You know, what's the debate inside your head? Every one of us has a debate that goes, well, you know, I want to, but maybe, you know, and you can just add in, like you said, there's always a reason. And understanding that and hearing it and putting it out in the light, you can see how futile it is. And then come back and remember the feeling that is going to be the motivation in those moments that that debate arises, right? It's going to take stopping, breathing, and remembering, oh, I don't want to feel that. It's just a choice. It's that level of a daily decision that is going to either create or not create the new paradigm. So I want to say one thing is, if you're not ready, then don't do it. Obviously, I'm not into coercion, right? We know that also. That's not the point. If it's not the right time for you, then don't do it now. And just stay quiet. And I want to say that not using your passion and your purpose, that's not benign. It's not benign. Failure really is an option here. And we need to know that. It can happen that you don't do it. And so if it's not time now, I really ask that somehow you do whatever it is to make the time come in your life to experience this. And for those of you who are ready, I think it's a fabulous, wonderful experience to declare, as I said, the change that you're committing to making and what it is that you need to do that. And that it's really important that you stand in your group when you make this declaration and own it and feel it the same way you felt how it will feel if you don't. Oh, thank you so much for this experience. I love people. I just oh God. One thing, there's a few things. One, I learned a lot from a woman named Brene Brown. For any of you who don't know her, she talks a lot about the difference between shame and guilt. And it's a really important distinction as we do the work of looking inside and reckoning our behavior with our purpose and our passion, and especially because in these times of ever new information coming, which clearly everybody here has a commitment to taking in new information, it does add to our to-do list. This is that to-do list, that spiritual, psychological, practical to-do list that grows as we get informed. And this process is one that we can use again and again. And the distinction, just to put it in your minds, is that, how she would say it, I think, is that guilt would be, let's say you're sitting at a table with there's some orange juice on the corner and you stand up and knock the orange juice all over the table. Guilt is sort of like, oh, I'm putting the orange juice on the edge of the table doesn't work. I'm going to make sure that I don't do that again. right? And you use the, oops, that wasn't a good thing to do, right? I'm going to not do it again. Shame is, I'm so stupid for putting the orange juice on the edge of the table. It's like, you're not so stupid for putting the orange juice on the table. You made a mistake. That's it. And now you have a chance to correct that behavior. And the self-talk is really important as we engage this process. And to be kind and gentle and understand that we are being, I would say encouraged, but it's more like entrained to not do this, right? Be hard on yourself, be hard on each other. And it's our job now to open this up, open our hearts, be kind to ourselves as we engage in the most difficult part of manifesting the new paradigm, which is personal change. So I wanted to acknowledge a friend of mine. Gary, did you want to say something? Okay. Yes. Yeah. There's one coming your way.
Some people in my community in Marin are starting to look at the whole issue around aging and medical events and dying when you don't have money and how we care for each other, right? And it requires a vulnerability about recognizing how would it feel if that happened and we were that vulnerable and we weren't able to care for one another or have care around us. And someone said that there's a lot of talk about community in a place like Marin, but there's really very little experience of it because everyone's moving so fast. And I don't think Marin's alone in this issue because we're being energetically entrained to the pace that is in our culture that actually creates we're embodied human doings, not human beings. And the state of being that you've just taken us through is something that's harder and harder to create for yourself because the culture is so fast and defined around doing and product and end results and et cetera. So I just want to say the inquiry that I've been going through that's been challenging for me is this, the mirror neuron on a cultural scale is entraining myself because I want to align to what's around me. So I end up doing way more than I want to be and forgetting about the being-based, the quality of being-based vibrational frequency in which transformation, healing, and decisions like what you're asking us to do change where it happens. It happens in a being space, not a doing space. And I just want to say, as someone who's like teaching this and speaking about it and creating about this is like my thing I need to learn most, but it's a thing I'm actually trying to, tell everybody about that I need to hear more than anyone I know. It's daunting when you don't recognize that the laws of entrainment on a vibrational level are happening by just being in a place that is running so fast. And as garbage in, garbage out with the media and all this, it's all conspiring us to not show up in integrity with a commitment to being beings, not just doings. And I just wanted to bring that elephant out of the rug in my life that I speak about it all the time, but I have a hard time really showing up to myself with that commitment every day.
Right.
And I just felt like I really wanted to claim that as a cultural decision that the laws of physics around entrainment on a vibrational level are forces that we're working with that are conspiring against showing up for ourselves in the way you're asking us to today.
Right.
I just want to thank you because I've had a very beautiful and big experience with this.
And I'm
Thank you a
so
lot.
grateful that you did. Thank you. Okay, I'm getting, but my time is up. Officially, I just need to say that I'm happy to stay and talk myself with this. So I don't need to leave, but I do have something that I wanted to say that I didn't say earlier before, which is a friend of mine who's here, Joyce Anastasia, wrote a very courageous book on leadership called Extraordinary Leaders in Extraordinary Times, where she talks about things like 9/11 and things that, are are challenging to talk about publicly, or in books or whatever it is. And so I invited her to bring the book and have it available if anybody's interested in that. It will be in the back of the room before you leave. And I just wanted to honor you, Joyce, and your work in doing that. So thank you. And I also wanted to say that Teresa, my dear friend and comrade for so long, since way before Thrive, helping me find my voice in the most spacious and like one thing, I've never been embarrassed with Teresa. And she had, like, finding your voice, that's not like a pretty process, you know. So I'm very grateful for Teresa in this. So I have to say that we're officially done, so I don't keep you from lunch, but I would love to hear what you have to say. Is that Teresa's much more experienced with this kind of thing than I am, but is it okay as long as everybody's, I don't know how to do this part.
Is that on? Okay. I wanted to say one quick thing.
Yeah.
And
Please be quiet if you are going to go. Please do it quietly so those of us who want to listen
Right.
can.
One quick thing. The vibrational frequency thing we're in, I understand it very well. I feel it. I've been blessed to have the time and space in nature so that you can counteract it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing for me that has ever worked.
Yeah.
And if I go out and literally hug a tree, if I literally go into the middle of a wilderness region where I am 100 or 300 miles from any major city, any electrical grid, you will get away from it and you'll feel it out of your body.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing I know that worked.
Yeah.
And I wish it for everyone,
Yeah.
and I hope we create a world where everyone can have that. Because I've
concur.
given it to everybody I can give it to, but I can only reach so many people, right? So
Yeah.
we've got to find a way to
Be
give
in
it to each
nature
other.
as much as you can. And also the quiet. And this gentleman here who, do you have something to say? I would love to hear it if you do.
I'll try to convey it as best as I can. After doing the exercise, what I realized was something very pertinent that this lady shared about check in and check out. What I really realized is that what she's asking us to do is to bring back the issue, whatever it is that you guys worked on. At some point, it felt like we made a decision to check out on it. And the whole invitation here was to check back in. And this is something that I see that I do most of my life, is like something that I don't want to deal with, like even 9/11 as it were. We do make at some level a conscious decision to check out on stuff. And then we have to bring it psychically back in to take a look at. So it is under our control as much as we think it isn't.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you all. This is a wonderful experience for me, and I'm just honored to architect a new paradigm with you. Thank you. Yeah.